Hi, everyone. I apologize that I'm a couple minutes late getting this started. It's Tom Carpenter here. I am going to share my presentation here. Not sure if anybody's actually logged in. If somebody can post a comment either on the Facebook stream or in the Facebook comments or LinkedIn or YouTube, if you're here, just let me know. I'd love to know that this is actually going out to people. I don't think we see anybody who's joined at this point. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and try to get this started. Oh, a few people have joined. Okay. Again, apologies that I'm a couple of minutes late getting this started. I had a little bit of a technology issue getting logged in. It's Tom Carpenter here. I am. Okay, there's Sue. Thank you, Sue. You're my hero. Um, we're going to talk a little bit today about business structure. Awesome. Okay, I think we're cooking with gas here. We're going to talk a little bit about business structure here, um, and this is intended to be the first in a series of a couple different webinars. We're going to be recording this. It'll be living on for posterity in the on our Facebook page for our law practice, also our YouTube channel. This is where you can find me if you need to get in touch with me. A few professional responsibility disclosures to get out of the way here. This could be viewed as attorney advertising. It is not intended to be, I'm not intending to provide specific legal advice. By participating in this webinar, we're not creating an attorney-client relationship, and prior outcomes don't guarantee future results. So just because something was decided one way doesn't mean it's going to be decided that way the next time. And I'm going to add an additional disclaimer here. There might be a few things that I talk about that tread into the area of tax law, income tax. I am not a tax attorney, and I'm not here to provide you with tax advice. You should talk to your CPA or your tax attorney or your tax professional about those types of things. I'm also not going to dwell on this, but suffice it to say, I'm a lawyer. I've been working in private practice for a few years now, but most of my career was in the entertainment industry in-house. But in addition to my law practice, where I represent a lot of travel agencies and tour operators, I also have my own hosted travel agency. So, okay. As we go through this, if you have questions, I'm going to try to leave some time for Q&A at the end of the webinar. So you can type your questions into the comments if you're watching on Facebook or LinkedIn. You can also or on our YouTube channel if you're looking at it there. But basically, you may have seen other presentations that I've done before, and I always talk about it from this perspective, that travel is a high-risk industry. There are all sorts of things that can go wrong: fraud and scams, you're handling your clients' payment information, chargebacks, geopolitical tensions, natural disasters, supplier mistakes, supplier defaults and bankruptcies, and all the things that we have to comply with because travel is highly regulated. This is the baseline for what we're going to be talking about, not just in this webinar, but also in the next few webinars that I'm going to be doing. We're going to try to do one every couple of weeks. This one is focusing on business structure. Others are going to talk about other things. As much as risk as there is in this industry, this is the takeaway that I want everybody to come away with principally, is that risk can be managed. And that's what this series of webinars is aiming to get through to people, is that there are practical ways that you can get out in front of the risk. And business structure is a big part of that. So the reason business structure matters, in my view, is because business structure really determines who's going to be responsible if something goes sideways when you're running your business. There are all sorts of implications for your structure. It has an impact on whether your personal assets are protected from liabilities of your business, how you are taxed. It can affect how your contracts are enforced. If you're growing or scaling your business, if you're going to make an exit from your business and get rid of your business, or if you're adding people to the business, your structure has implications for all of that as well. And I really want to encourage people to think about this outside of the frame of, well, I heard that, or my friend did it this way. Facebook group advice is not an acceptable substitution for having a legally defensible structure. So I want to talk a little bit more about that before we get into it, because this, I think, is a kind of an issue in the industry. I'm not going to go through all of these things. This is a point counterpoint. People are more than happy to give you advice about how they think you should run your business. And not all of that advice, even though it comes from a good place, might not be really helpful. It might be based on misinformation. And so I would just caution you when somebody says something to you about this, don't necessarily take it as the last word, because there could be a counterpoint. So let's just move on from that. Again, you're running a business in a high-risk industry. I want to talk about a few things here. The travel industry has a very low bar to entry. It doesn't take much for you to start a business as a travel agency or as a travel advisor. You can answer a Facebook ad and not really interview other host agencies, and in a couple of weeks you could be selling travel to people. That doesn't happen in other industries. People who decide to open up other small businesses, bars, restaurants, if you decided to open up a clothing boutique, or if you were going to open up a business, servicing people's HVAC systems, you're not going to do that in 2 weeks by spending $25 and signing up for a system. So keep that in mind. If that's how you started your business, there's no shame here. I'm glad you found us. It's not too late to square everything away and shore everything up. I want you to think about the fact that even a part-time business, even a business that you're doing primarily on evenings and weekends, it's still a business. And you need to run it like it's an actual business, because if you don't, bad things will happen to you. Don't fall in love with a bad idea. I have all sorts of people who reach out to me, and they've seen somebody else doing something and they think it looks fun and clever, and they decide they're going to go with it, or they, wake up in the morning and they have this brilliant idea that they're thinking on that brilliant idea crystallizes while they're taking a shower, and then they sit down and they implement the bad idea without actually being thoughtful and strategic about how they're doing that. I call that the ready, fire, aim problem. You don't want to shoot the gun before you've aimed it. And so try not to be ready, fire, aim about your business. Cookie cutter. There are lots of things out there where you can buy documents that have been drafted not for your business, but just drafted generally. You can buy a marketing system that has not been customized for the unique nature of your business. So this isn't a bake sale. You're selling travel. So cookie cutter really is not going to work for you. And with respect to that, I would say, this last point, do the free trial. There are lots of people out there who have been very, very successful in their travel agencies, and they've been running their business like it's a real business. They are running a well-oiled machine, and at a certain point, they think, I'm busting my hump selling travel to people, and I've been successful, and I've got a powerhouse agency now. And why are other people struggling when they could be doing it my way? And so what those agency owners do is they think, oh, well, I'm gonna package up my system. I'm gonna sell my marketing strategies. I'm gonna sell my business structure and my templates and my workflows and all of that. And that's great. Clearly, those things have been good for them. They have developed a really solid business for themselves. But every business is different. And so if you are struggling with your marketing, or if you're struggling with how to be efficient when you're working with your clients, before you go all in on buying something that you think is going to be the magic bullet to protect to fix your problem, do the free trial, because I see lots of people who spend tons of money buying this and buying that, and they load themselves up with all sorts of systems and processes and templates and contracts, and they haven't really been thoughtful about how they've been doing that, and they're spending a lot of money for things that they may or may not actually wind up using. So, that groupthink advice, the group advice that's out there, that's about what works in practice for other people, and it works for them until it's been tested. So think about the difference between Facebook advice and legal defensibility. Legal defensibility is what's going to survive scrutiny if somebody actually gets into it. So a legally defensible structure is one that's really going to match how your business operates on a day-to-day basis. If that changes, if you go from being a part-time business to a full-time business, that might mean that the structure of your business and your operations and processes need to change to match that. Legally defensible structure also needs to comply with the applicable laws and regulations. And if you don't know what those are, you should take some time to research that and find that out. There's a lot of bad information floating around out there about what the laws are and how they apply to people. So beware of that. And also a legally defensible structure is one that's going to be defensible if, heaven forbid, you get audited, or you're trying to find the right insurance for your business, or heaven forbid, there's a dispute and you wind up in front of a judge. You're going to want to have a legally defensible structure. So what is a legally defensible structure? You need an entity. It needs to be properly formed, and it needs to be maintained. Your contracts are a big part of your structure. You're going to want to make sure that you've got a contract stack that works for you. I'm going to do a whole other webinar on contract stack, which we'll talk about in a future session. You want to make sure your registrations and your licenses are complete and current. Those can vary based on where you're located. And roles and responsibilities, you need those clearly documented, especially if you're going into business with somebody else. And you need to have consistency between what the documents say, what your business does, and what you see happening in your business. You really want to keep an eye on those things, which is why I say those cookie cutter documents and policies are not going to protect you. Those weren't drafted for you. They're not going to be reflective of what's actually happening in your business. So on a very top line level, I've used a slide like this before. Maybe you've seen it, but what is the best business form for your business? So your business form is a big part of that structure. If you don't have a business form, you are functioning as a sole proprietor, which means you and your business are one and the same. You're going to be taxed as an individual, but because you and your business are one and the same, you don't really have any you don't have any protection for your personal assets from liabilities of your business. If you're a corporation, you're probably going to be taxed twice. You're going to be taxed as a corporate entity, but also as an individual. That's not ideal for most people. Some people it might work. You might want to talk to your accountant or your tax professional about it. The good news is that when you form a corporation, your personal assets are protected from the liabilities of your company. So a mixed bag there. For most travel businesses, and I say most because there's not a one-size-fits-all approach here. For most people, I think a limited liability company is going to be the sweet spot because you can have a lot of flexibility in your tax treatment. You can be taxed as an individual. You can even have a limited liability company that's taxed as an S corporation. S corporation, that's a tax treatment as well as a business structure for some people. But talk to your accountant about that, whether that makes sense. But a limited liability company will protect your personal assets from liabilities of your business, provided that you're not setting it up the wrong way. Sometimes people ask, where should I set up my business? I have people reach out to me saying, I've heard, because I heard it on Facebook, that I should establish my business in Wyoming or Delaware because that's going to protect me. Well, okay, for most small businesses, I think it's probably going to be the state where you live or where you principally operate. There are some protections in some states like Delaware and Wyoming and Nevada where there may be rules related to corporate governance that provide an advantage to some companies, but you're not IBM. So, you're a small travel business. So, are you really going to get that much of an advantage if you incorporate your business in one of those other states, especially if you live halfway across the country? If you do form in a state other than one where you reside, you may need to register your business as a foreign entity if you're doing business in states other than the state where your business is formed. So if you're selling residence to another state, if you're setting up an office or a physical presence in another state, you don't live in Delaware, you live in Missouri, but you've formed a Delaware LLC or a Delaware corporation, you're going to have to do some other stuff that you might not have to do if you just set up your business in Missouri to start with. You're going to need a registered agent in the state where your business is formed. You can be your own registered agent, which might be another advantage to setting up your business in the state where you reside. If you move out of that state, you can have a friend or a family member be your registered agent. You don't have to hire a company to do that for you. If you've got somebody who's still there, you can make them your official registered agent if they're willing to take your mail and call you if there's a problem. And because if you do move, you might not be able to just lift and shift your business to another state. Whether or not you're able to, quote unquote, re-domicile your business entity is going to depend on whether the state where you currently are allows it and where the new state where you're going allows it. Both states have to permit that in order for it to happen. And so if you're about to form a business, but you're going to be moving in a year, give some thought to that. You might want to do some investigation to find out how easy is it going to be for me to move my business to the new state once I move. Okay. Corporate formalities and piercing the veil. Okay, so piercing the corporate veil is this thing that happens when somebody tries to prove that your business entity is really a closely held personal corporation. Basically, you have gone through the steps you need to go through to set up your LLC so that you're not a sole proprietor, so that your personal assets are not subject to the liabilities of your business. But then somebody decides to come after you and they say, yeah, she set up an LLC, but that LLC is meaningless because she's still treating it like it's her own personal financial situation. So you want to keep a wall. That's why I picked this picture. Keep a wall between your personal assets and your business assets. Have a dedicated credit card that you use for business expenses. Do not use that for personal expenses. Do not pay for your business expenses out of your personal checking account. Have a separate business checking account. Keep a line between your personal stuff and your business stuff. Have an operating agreement and bylaws. We used to tell people, if you're a single person LLC, you might not need it. We think it's a no-brainer to have an operating agreement and some bylaws. You should really put that in place for your LLC so that it looks, so that it accurately reflects how you're actually doing business. When you enter into contracts, you want to enter into contracts as your business. If you have a business, so that you're not signing contracts personally as an individual when those should be contracts with your business. And courts will ignore your liability protection if they think that there's too much overlap and the corporate veil has been pierced, so to speak. So if you are paying for your electric bill out of your business account for your house, if you are paying for your personal expenses using your business credit card, all of those things, if God forbid you get sued and you're in front of a judge and the other side's attorney is rooting around in your underwear drawer. These are the things that are going to cause problems for protecting your personal assets from liabilities of your business. Okay, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about host agencies and independent agencies. A lot of times when people start off, they start off by being with a hosted agency, rather. If you have a business and you are a hosted business, or even if you're a sub-agent, if you are an independent contract, those are both independent contractor relationships. You are not employed. Your host agency is not your employer. You cannot file an unemployment claim after you leave your host agency. That is not a thing. The key distinction between being a hosted business or a sub-agent is whose brand are you selling under? Are you operating an independent business? I've got a slide that's about to come up on this. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But your agreement with your host agency is not going to provide any kind of consumer-facing protection. It's not going to protect you when you're dealing with your clients. You shouldn't expect your host agency to help with that sort of thing. But even if you're a hosted business, even if you are operating a business under a host agency, you still need to have a legal structure for your business. It's critically important. So I want to just talk about the difference between a host agency and a sub-agent. And a lot of people get this conflated, so I'm going to go really, really slowly. If you're only selling travel, that's all you're doing. You are selling travel. You're not running your own business. You're just selling travel. You're probably a sub-agent of somebody else's business. If you are a sub-agent, you're not going to have your own brand name. You're not going to have your own trade name. So, for example, you might have some of your own social media feeds, but if you are selling travel under Magical Celebration Mickey Vacations, and I'll apologize if that's somebody's business name, it very well may be, but if that's the brand you're selling under and somebody else owns that business, you are a sub-agent. They are not your host agency, they're an agency and you are their sub-agent. Whereas if you are selling under Adventures by Alyssa and your host agency is called something like Uniglobe or Nexion or Outside Agents or Travel Planners International or Gifted Travel Network, those are host agencies and you are operating your own independently branded business under them. So that's the difference between a host agency and an agency. That's the difference between being a hosted business and a sub-agent. If you are a sub-agent, your agency owner is going to be responsible for compliance because, again, all you're doing is selling travel. You're not running that business. You're not running that agency. They're running the agency. You are just selling travel under their business name, under their business brand. You're probably going to be covered by your agency's errors and omissions insurance if you are a sub-agent. If you're an agency owner and you've got sub-agents, you want to check with your carrier to make sure that that's true. If you're a sub-agent, you can and you should be using your parent agency's tech stack, their documents and their policies, their terms and conditions. If you're selling under somebody else's brand, don't go out and get your own stuff because that might create problems for your agency owner. You're going to want to be using their stuff because, again, you're just selling travel. You're not running an independent business. And whether or not your liabilities and your responsibilities to the agency owner, if you're a sub-agent, are going to be governed by your independent contractor agreement. So, again, you might be an independent business person, but if you're a sub-agent, you're not running a full throttle business. You are selling travel under somebody else's business. That is different than being a hosted business independent contractor. And so I just want to talk about that because I hear a lot of people using these things independently. I see a lot of people getting really bad advice from Facebook groups about what constitutes an IC and what you have to do for your business structure if you are an IC. There are different kinds of ICs. They're all legit. Well, many of them are legitimate. Sub-agent is a legitimate form of IC, behavior, and so is being a hosted business. I want to talk a little bit about the names of your business, registering your trade name. I did a webinar a while ago with my good friend MJ Williams, who is a trademark attorney. She is much better at explaining all of this than I am in terms of getting in depth. But I want to talk a little bit about it because I know enough about it to know that most people are doing this wrong. When you register your business as an LLC, you're registering the name of your business. That does not provide you with trademark protection. You get trademark protection when you start using a name in commerce. When you start putting yourself out there using a trade name, that is protection. When you start using that name, provided that somebody else wasn't using that same name or a variation of that name first. You may want to go ahead and register that name with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office to protect it. But whether or not you register your name with the USPTO, it's first come, first serve. Once you start using that name out in the marketplace, you have already got some trademark protection by virtue of using that. If your LLC name is different than your trade name, you might want to reach out to your Secretary of State's office and get a certificate of assumed name or a DBA for your name. So I own a travel agency. My agency name is Huckleberry Travel. That is a DBA of what our LLC name is. Our LLC name sounds nothing like Huckleberry Travel. You can have multiple DBAs under the umbrella of the same LLC. You can have multiple businesses under the umbrella of your LLC. There are exceptions to that. But in terms of the name that you're using out there in commerce, the DBA or the certificate of assumed name is going to give you the ability to transact business, sign contracts, open bank accounts under those names. But registering a DBA also does not provide trademark protection. So just because you start using a name, just because you register that name as an LLC, because you register that name as a DBA, that doesn't give you trademark protection. You get trademark protection by virtue of being the first person to start using that name in the marketplace. Okay, how do you choose a name? And this might be too late for a lot of you, but it also might be something you might need to revisit. You need to have a name that's distinctive, because a name that's generic is not something that's going to be protectable. So Premier Luxury Travel, there are lots of businesses out there that are selling luxury travel, and they are at the top of their game, and so they are Premier Luxury Travel. That is not necessarily a name that you're going to get any kind of trademark protection over. Adventure and Wellness Travel, well, that's descriptive. That's telling the kinds of travel that you sell. So that is generic enough that it probably can't be protected by a trademark. Adding words or slight variations, that doesn't change something that is an infringement into something that's protectable. So Huckleberry Travel Agency, if somebody else opened up something called Huckleberry Travel Agency, that would be an infringement upon my business, which is Huckleberry Travel, because I was using Huckleberry Travel first. And I promise you that's true, because I took the time to make sure that was the case. So if somebody else is using a variation on that, Huckleberry Travel, Huckleberry Adventures, the Huckleberry Travel, Huckleberry Travels, none of those things are, all of those things are infringements on my business name. And I'm going to protect my business name because it's an asset of my business. Similarly, Blue Horizon Travels, Blue spelled BLU, Horizon Travel of Arizona. Somebody who's Blue Horizon, Blue spelled the correct way, Horizon Travel, without the Arizona, those are still probably going to be infringements, because the person who was there first using a variation of Blue Horizon is going to be the one who owns that trademark. So what I would just recommend is if you are rebranding, or if you are starting a business, start with a Google search of every possible variation of your name. You can hire my friend MJ to do a deeper dive to make sure that somebody else hasn't already registered that trademark before you. And also keep in mind that slogans can also be trademarked, and some of these slogans are owned by big companies. So I'm loving it. Like that's McDonald's, right? So I'm loving it. Travel. You might, if you started a business like that, you may get a nasty lawyer letter from McDonald's trademark attorneys. Just do it. Nike Vacations. Again, you might be infringing on Nike's trademark for their thing. Finger looking good adventures. I'm sure somebody out there wants to start a business like that. KFC might come after you. So, okay, I love this picture. I try to put stock pictures in my presentations that make no sense, and this is one of those. So, look at this couple. They're planning travel, and apparently their travel advisor, who bears a remarkable resemblance to Angelina Jolie, wants to send them to Siberia for some reason. Anyway, seller of travel laws. Okay, consumer protection measures. Seller of travel laws are consumer protection measures. There's just a lot of bad information out there about seller of travel laws, who they apply to, when they apply. There are even some host agencies out there that are giving bad information and wrong information about seller of travel laws to their hosted advisors. I don't understand why, but there are good host agencies, and also there are other host agencies. So consumer protection, it's a consumer protection measure, which means that you are subject to seller of travel registrations when you are selling or marketing travel to people who reside in those states, consumers who reside in California, Florida, Hawaii, and Washington. If your host agency is still giving you an Iowa seller of travel number, you should let them know that in 2020, Iowa discontinued their seller of travel registrations. Nevada was discontinued even before then. So, the discontinuation of the 2020 there was only one good thing that happened to the travel industry in 2020, and that was that Iowa scrapped their seller of travel laws. So it's where the client resides. There are penalties for non-compliance. And if you are a hosted agency and your host agency has seller of travel registrations, you may be able to use their host agency registrations, but you also might not. So if you are taking fees from residents of California, Florida, Hawaii, and Washington, that's going to remove your exemption from having to have your own. If you are not a single person entity, if you're not a one person show, a single member LLC or a sole proprietor, if you have a partnership LLC or there are more than one person in your business, you may need to get your own seller of travel registration, even if your host agency has it. So, but compliance with seller of travel laws is the law, and it's part of your business structure. You need to be in compliance with the law when you're structuring your business. Okay, going to talk a little bit about Contract Stack, and I'm going to do a whole different webinar on this because we can do a deep dive on contracts, and that is its own time. Terms and conditions. You want a good, solid terms and conditions document. That's going to be the terms and the conditions under which you're booking travel for your clients. Client agreements, group contracts. Those are shorter, more user-friendly contracts in some cases. If you're doing group contracts, there are all sorts of different kinds of group contracts. Your terms and conditions might work for some groups, but if you're doing destination weddings, for example, you're going to probably want a contract with the bride and the groom that talks about how that destination wedding is going to go. Credit card authorizations, that is super, super important. I talk about that in most presentations that I do. You need magic language in order to get your clients to agree to your ability to use their credit cards. You need to have them agreeing to your terms and conditions as part of that credit card authorization. You can't win a chargeback dispute if you don't have the right credit card authorization language, if you're not getting credit cards in the right way. Advertising disclosures. The Federal Trade Commission has rules about how you advertise travel. If you have a blog where you are talking about suppliers and you have a material relationship with the company you're blogging about, you have an obligation to disclose that under the Federal Trade Commission rules. If you're using affiliate links, if somebody buys a noise canceling headset from a link on your website and you get a commission for that, you may need to disclose that. Website terms of use and data privacy policies, those used to be optional for some small businesses. I don't think they are anymore in this day and age. The farther in we get to get into all of this, I think everybody's going to need to have a website terms of use document and also a data privacy policy. Insurance waivers, that's important. Supplier terms don't protect you. So I hear this a lot from people. Well, I have them agree to the supplier terms. They don't agree, so I don't have my own terms and conditions. The supplier terms protect the supplier. They don't protect you. They don't protect your agency. And again, avoid cookie cutter templates, because what works for somebody else may not work for you based on what state you're in, based on the types of trips you're booking, the types of clients you're working with. If you have spent a lot of money to buy something that was not drafted specifically for your business, I'm sorry, but you might want to think about spending a little more money to get it done the right way. I want to talk about insurance. Insurance can really, really protect you, except when it doesn't. Errors and omissions insurance is the thing that most people are going to need. When you get your E&O insurance, you're going to want to look at what is covered and what is not covered. Errors and omissions insurance is generally covering you from professional negligence. If you mess up, if you make mistakes, that's what your E&O is for. It's going to protect you for things that your terms and conditions document can't protect you for. You want to look at the deductible. You want to look at shared policy risks. Insurance is not going to help you if you have bad contracts. It's not going to help you get out of a bad contract. It's not going to help you if you're not in compliance with the law and you're not in compliance with regulations. Personal liability exposure, your insurance isn't going to cover that. Beyond E&O, there are other insurance policies that you might want to think about having. Anything from a cybercrime policy, if you get hacked and all your clients' information gets stolen. If you are posting pictures on your website, you might want to have copyright insurance. Those things can be expensive, but there is insurance beyond E&O, and you might want to look into whether or not you need that. Again, insurance is part of your business structure. It's all about how you set yourself up to protect yourself. Credit card and data privacy. I mentioned credit card authorization language. I think you want to spend some time thinking about your tech stack, whether or not you've got a secure encrypted way to take credit cards. The technology you're using is a big part of your business structure. You want to pay attention to state privacy laws. I mentioned data privacy policies. Those are all over the place. And just because you don't store credit cards doesn't mean that you're not potentially exposed. In fact, you might actually have more exposure if you don't store credit cards. If you're using a secure encrypted tech tool, that can protect you. But think about your technology and how you're handling credit cards as part of your business structure, because it's part of your business structure. Okay, I want to spend just one little moment talking about this piece of why business structure matters. So if you're just a one-person show, you're a sole proprietor, you haven't taken any steps to form a business entity, but over the years you've been pouring a lot of time and effort and money into building a business, you've really gotten someplace, and you get to the point where you think, oh, I want to bring somebody onto my business to help me manage it. Maybe I want to spend less time selling travel and more time with my grandkids. Well, if you're a sole proprietor, you don't have any kind of business structure, so you're not going to be able to add anybody to that business structure as a partner. If you're adding independent contractors and advisors and you're a sole proprietor, you're personally liable for all of the horrible things that your ICs might be doing under your umbrella. That's bad. Commission ownership, post-termination rights, all of those things relate to whether or not you've got if you're making an exit from the business, what happens to all the bookings that are in the pipeline that haven't yet traveled yet. Having some sort of business structure is going to enable you to kind of think through what happens when you retire. What if you want to sell your agency? Well, if you're a sole proprietor, good luck, because you can't sell your sole proprietorship because you are your business. You're going to need some sort of structure. But also all of those other things we were talking about, tech stack, compliance with seller of travel registrations, having good solid IC relationships, all of those things, if you're doing those things the wrong way, that's potential liability for a buyer that they're not going to want to come in and buy your business. So you want to fix those compliance problems before they come back to bite you, just generally, but also you're making an investment in your business. You want to see return on that investment, and you can't see return on your investment if you haven't set your business up the right way with a sound, defensible legal structure. So that's what I got for you today. I'm going to go to the Q&A in a minute here, but compliance is a business asset. Think about it that way. Nobody wants to spend money they don't have to spend. I get that, but the money you're spending for compliance is not a cost of doing business. It is an asset to your business. It makes your business more valuable. That structure is going to protect you from liability, which is so important in a high-risk industry. So you want to be thoughtful and strategic when you're setting yourself up. And as your business grows and develops, you want to be responsive to the way your business is changing and keep the structure consistent with all of that. And just like one takeaway I hope people think about is, if your structure is only working because nobody's actually taken a look at it, it's not a defensible structure. So keep that in mind. All right. So I don't know what questions we've got in here about. I'm going to try to look at I'm not seeing a ton of questions. Maybe it's just because I scared the hell out of everybody and they've all logged off. No, we got some people here. Okay, good. Yeah. So if you have a question about any of this, or you want to drill down on anything, feel free to type something into the Facebook comments on this feed, or into the LinkedIn or the YouTube. All of those things should get to me. And if you are still here, let me know. I'm not seeing anything. Okay, so maybe we're done. Okay, so this is where you can find me if you need to find me. Oh, okay. So people are still there. Hi, Shayna. Nice to see you. Okay. Oh, we got a question. Great. Hi, Jamie. Is trademark something that has to be renewed every year? No, not every year, but you do have to renew your trademark. And what I would suggest is, if you don't know MJ, reach out to MJ. But yeah, you're going to get a lot of letters saying, "Hey, we can do this for you." If you've got your trademark, if you filed your trademark, you are going to need to renew it from time to time. You have to use it. You have to prove to the government that you have been using that name in trade. But there are all sorts of people out there that are going to send you letters offering to do it for you. Some of them are pretty scammy. I'd recommend talking to a reputable trademark attorney who specializes in it, so that they can do the right thing and do the right thing by you, and make sure that you've got everything squared away properly. Because again, trademarks is a very specific area of law, and I don't want to. I think you could. There are a lot of ways you can mess it up. So, okay. If I work for a host and a local agency, I'm a subagent and not an IC. Okay, so if you work for a host, I'm not sure exactly what that means. So if you're working for a host, are you an employee of that host agency? Meaning, do you do webinars for the host agency where and you're paid on a W-2? Or are you operating an independently branded business? So Sherry, I don't know exactly how you're structured. So there are people who are employees of host agencies. They do marketing, they do accounting, they do those things. Those are people who are working for a host. If you are operating an independent business and you are under a host agency, then your business is a hosted business. And so that's one thing. If you are selling under the brand of somebody else's agency, an agency that you don't own, then you are a sub-agent. But you are in either case, you are an independent contractor. You're an independent contractor if you're a sub-agent, and you're an independent contractor if you own a hosted business. Then your whole business is an independent contractor. Lots of different kinds of independent contractors. I don't know if that clarifies it. I think you should go down. Oh, there's a lot more. No, you work for, okay, I'm sorry. You work for TPI, then you work for a local agency as an IC. You never heard of a sub-agent term before. Okay, well, okay, so if you work for TPI, if you are an employee of TPI and TPI pays you for doing things for TPI, then you are an employee. If you are selling travel under a local agency as an independent contractor, then you are a sub-agent if you're selling under their brand. If you are operating your own independently branded business under TPI, then you are a hosted business, if that makes sense. Sharon's, I'm gonna go backwards from there. Can we reach out to you with trademark questions? You can, but I'm going to tell you to talk to my friend MJ Williams. Sharon, I know your host agency has a relationship with MJ. If you need her contact information, I will put you in touch with her, but she's a really, really great trademark lawyer, and she will take much better care of you than I could. Okay, let me go back down, back here. Okay. Oh, yeah, I'm going to be in Houston. Joe is saying, see you in Houston. I'm going to be in Houston next month at the ASTA show there. If anybody's in Texas and you're going to be if you're not a member of ASTA, you should join ASTA. I should say that in every presentation. But I'm going to be in Houston. If you are a client of mine, even if you're not a client of mine, but especially if you're a client of mine, and I'm at a trade show and you meet me there, please tell me, because I don't know what half of my clients look like. So let's see here. MJ's contact information. I should probably type it into the referral here. Hang on a second here. It is MJ Williams at wissingmiller.com. I'm going to type it into the comments so that I have too many tabs open. That's the biggest problem of my life. Okay. There's MJ's information. Tell her I said hello when you reach out to her. She is crushingly awesome. She's just really, really great. So, okay. So that's my trademark referral. Shannon is asking, here we go. Shannon is asking, when taking a trip and writing off only a portion, how do you suggest making payment when keeping business personal expenses separate? So that's really a question about, I think that's from a liability perspective, I'm less concerned about that. If you've got an attorney or a CPA, you're going to want to talk about that in terms of how you file your taxes. And I would take your cue from them. If your CPA tells you, yeah, that's deductible, pay for it out of your business accounts. If the CPA is telling you it's not deductible, then I think you're safe paying for it out of your personal expenses. That's kind of like the guideline that how I would think about it. If you transfer your LLC to a new state, do you have to register your DBA in the new state as well? Yes, but I mean, the question is going to be, if you've got an LLC in a new state, you're going to want to be transacting business in that new state under your trade name. And if your trade name is already taken by somebody else, that's going to be a problem for you. but I think you'd want to make sure that you've got a DBA or a certificate of assumed name in that new state. Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Sherry's confirming. Okay. She's not paid by TPI. She's hosted by TPI and the local agency. Yes. So it sounds to me like you are a sub-agent. So you don't have your own independent business name, business brand, and you're using the agency owner is taking care of your marketing, the name, the tech. Okay. We're all cleared. Good to go. Okay. So I think we're there. Again, I'm going to do the next one of these that I'm going to do is going to be on your tech stack, contracts that you need. I'm sorry, your contract stack, the contracts that you need, how they can protect you. It's part of the business structure, but it's also a thing unto itself. So keep an eye on our Facebook page for that. This is going to be recorded. It will continue to live on. And I'm going to try to replace some of the old outdated content that's on our YouTube channel with things like this. I hope people found it helpful. If you need us, again, this is where you can get in touch with us. You can shoot us a note. We are happy to set up a complimentary consultation call to talk through issues with you. And I hope everybody is staying warm and dry. I know there's a huge storm that's sweeping the country, but stay warm, dry, take care of yourselves. And if we can be helpful to you or your business, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you so much. And everybody have a wonderful weekend. Take care. Bye.